Welcome back to What Would You Ask podcast. My next guest, and I'm really excited that she's here. She was a castaway on Survivor 10 Palau. I believe it was in 2004. She made it to the final five with a really good cast. A lot of potential winners in that cast. I don't know if I'm not judging the folks on the show. That's a different topic. And she really had a solid game, strategy across the board, physical, the cerebral game, the social game. She really had a good game plan. And with a tough group, I think a Final Four is a win-win for me. Look, if I'm there a day or two, I'd be happy. Caryn Groedel, welcome to What Would You Ask podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad you're here.
Me
We're
too.
going to jump right into the questions. These are questions right off the bat. Our quick hitters are from viewers all over the place, and they had a bunch of questions for you once we announced you were going to be on the show, so we'll just jump right in.
Okay.
Katie from St. Petersburg, Florida asked, what are the key attributes to win on Survivor?
It really is all three. You have to be pretty good at challenges. You have to have a social game, and you have to be strategic. And if you don't pick one, or you are only good at one, I don't think very few winners have won that way. Sandra, a few others who weren't great at challenges, but were very, top heavy in strategy can make it. But overall, I think you need something in each of those three categories.
I agree with you. Ashley from Newport News, Virginia says, hi, Caryn. What was the best and worst part of your experience on Survivor?
Hi, Ashley. The best part truly was that I was able to show my three daughters, who at the time were, 8, 14, and 16, that even as a 40-something-year-old, you can do anything. If a mother of three and lawyer from New York who's transplanted to Cleveland can make it on Survivor, with mostly younger people. It was only on my tribe, me, Tom, and Willard. Then they can do anything. So that was the best thing. I would say two best things. One is it's proving that to myself also, that I could do anything. And the hardest thing truly is being without sleep, because your stomach gets used to the hunger, and after 5 days or so, unless somebody talks about food, you're not, which you beg them not to do because you've forgotten about it for a while. But your body gets used to that. But when you don't have sleep, because you don't have a blanket, you don't have a pillow, you don't have someone to cuddle with. I did, because I had Kobe, but I didn't want guys like Tom to think I was coming on. I was married. He is married. So the sleeping thing, when you are sleeping and you're getting skinnier every day, and there are mice or rats running over you and squeaking, and you can't be on your top, at the top of your game. You just can't be. And you start getting a little paranoid. You really think, I'm never paranoid thinking people are talking about me or gossiping about me, but all of a sudden I started thinking, every time I'd look away or go out in the woods to do my private business, I would say, I better get right back there. I think they're talking about me. And really, I had a lot of friends until the very end. So I had no reason to think they were talking about me, but that sleep can really play tricks on your mind, aside from the fact that you're not sharp the next day for a challenge, or 3 days later, usually 3 days later.
Scott from Charlotte, North Carolina said, did you exceed your expectations coming in 5th?
Scott, I actually think that I had no expectations when I went in, because I didn't know who would be on my tribe. Okay. I know I'm a strong runner. I know I have staying power. I could stand on one foot. I learned how to do pogo stick. I did all these things that I did to get stronger before I left. So I knew it all depended on my tribe. Well, there's Jolanda, an Olympic athlete. There's Stephanie, who was like, her nickname growing up was Street Rat, because she was like in and out of, she grew up with 5 brothers or something, and she was really athletic and tough, like grew up in New Jersey, like tough. And there was Tom, a fireman, who can carry 350 pounds of pack of gear on his back while climbing a ladder and has to run a 7-mile minute. And so when I got there, I'm thinking, now I can see where I'm going to be more, at least in the physical part of it. And then I took a few days to kind of, really kind of strategize and think what I was going to do. So I would say at the beginning, I thought I could go, that I'd be final. Our season was the first season that was final 3, I believe. I thought I could go all the way and be in the final 2. But then when I saw Ian, a dolphin swimmer, a dolphin trainer who swam, and so many of the challenges were water. And then he was catching clams and fish and all these great things. So as the game went on, I thought, when I went in of thinking, I'm ready, I'm strong, I'm tough, I'm prepared. I trained for this. I read books on plants, not like what we could eat and what we couldn't eat.
Yeah.
Even though we didn't know where we were going, just kind of looking like tropical. So I felt really great going in, and then I adjusted my expectations, but didn't stop trying. But I adjusted once I saw dolphin trainer, Olympic athlete, Stephanie, street rat, firefighter. I'm thinking, well, I know I could beat Willard. I know I can beat Katie.
Yeah.
And then Kobe ended up being quite the talent in challenges. No one thought he'd be so great. Everyone thought, oh, gay guy, sissy, which was so far from the truth. He was great at challenges. He was great at, everything, water, puzzles, you name it. So I really thought he'd go further than I did. And I kind of think he should have.
He did a good job. I agree with you.
He did a great job.
Christina from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania asks, what is Jeff Probst like? He seems sometimes to really go hard on the castaways, and other times he seems like a really nice guy.
Christina,
yeah.
I think that he is the nicest person, and I'm not just saying it. I'll tell you why. So I, being a mom and a lawyer, didn't want to be revealing. I didn't want to wear just a bra or just my underwear. I wanted to be modest for my daughters and for my clients. I wanted them to respect me and my opposing counsel and judges who'd be watching. So I had to be really careful about this. And so when you're going on a challenge, you don't know if it's going to be a water challenge or a land challenge, and you only have a few pieces of clothing to choose from. So I had my bra, a pair of pants, my buff, my underwear, and my shoes. So when you left, you didn't know what it was. And so I thought it was going to be, I guessed the land challenge, and we got there, and it was combined land water. It was the challenge where we had to stand up in boats and push and then grab flags and stuff. So I thought if I fall out of the boat and I have to swim, I didn't know, just looking at it. And once you start a challenge, that's it. There's no breaks, there's no stops, there's no nothing. So once I saw that it could be water, and I was wearing pants, and I knew that was not good. And Jeff's like, okay, we're gonna go, we're gonna pick, teams. And I said, can we stop? I'm wearing pants. I don't want to take off my pants and just be in my underwear. I would like to take my buff off and wear it as a skirt so that if I have to go in the water, I'm not just in my underwear. And he said yes. And that was one of a few times that he really showed me extra kindness, where he could have just said, no, Caryn, this is Survivor, and just deal with it. But he stopped, and he a few times let me modify before starting a challenge because he was sensitive to my concern.
Craig from Queens, New York asks, did you have a favorite male and female castaway before going on Survivor?
Ethan, because he was Jewish and I'm Jewish, and I thought he's nice. He didn't really screw anybody over. He just seemed to be a great player, and I would say he was my. Not only did I think he was the best, but I modeled my playing after him. I wanted to be honest, straightforward, and nice all the way through, because that was another thing I wanted to teach my daughters, which was you can get very far not backstabbing, being nice, and still being, you can catch more flies with honey sometimes than anything else. So I hope that answered your question.
It does. So let's talk about the journey a little bit. How this all started out. We got a bunch of questions on what motivated you to try out. What was the audition like? How many times did you have to try out? So tell us a little bit about how the origin of the journey started.
So my daughter was 12 at the time, my middle one. We used to have this ritual where we would every Thursday, this was on Thursday nights, we would get Subway and we'd sit and we'd watch, my 3 daughters and me, and sometimes my husband. And after a few seasons, Isabel, my middle daughter, said, "Mom, do you notice there's always one mom? You could be the mom." And I said, "Isabel, I'm not going to be, I have 5, I'm a lawyer, I have 5 employees. I have 3 daughters. I have a husband who works many, many hours. I'm not going to do any interview or audition tape or have to be naked or do anything. It's not for me, Isabel." And she said, "Mom, I really think you could do it." So she said, "If I do your 3-minute video and I fill out the application, will you mail it? Because I don't know how to do postage." So I said, "Okay." So she came with me. This was my entire video was this. In the morning, she had me working in a basement. I worked out for 30 seconds. Then she came with me to my office for 30 seconds and I talked to my employees about what was going on in the day. I was going to court to argue a big motion. And then we went to court and she asked the judge, "Can I film my mom?" And the judge said, "Why do you want to film your mom arguing this motion?" And she said, "I'm not allowed to tell. I signed a $5 million contract with Survivor and I'm not allowed to tell you." So it was so funny. So that judge, who I'm still before today, actually, in another case all these years later, she let Isabel film me. So I argued a motion in my suit, of course, Then I went back to the office. Isabel filmed me getting like all the messages and everything that had happened all day. Then I was exhausted and I went home for 30 seconds. It was a bizarre day because my husband, now ex, but my husband worked many, many hours. He was never home before 9. So when I walked in that day with Isabel from court and from my office, he was for some reason in his pajamas doing dishes and at 6:00. And Isabel was filming me and I don't know if to this day if they planned it, I don't think so. She got me laughing hysterically. And sometimes that is what Survivor likes. They like a certain giggle or a certain laugh. So she got the giggle and then we just went out on the deck and she had us drinking a glass of wine and celebrating that I won my motion. And that was it. And I filled out that, application and she filled it out and I mailed it. And that was it. It was my first time applying. I didn't do it. I have to give her all the credit. And an interesting thing that happened though on my first interview, I went and made it to the semifinals and then the finals. So at the semifinals, the woman who interviewed me, she was from New York and I'm from New York. So we had a bond and I think that helped. And we schmoozed a little bit before my interview. So that helped. The other thing that was challenging though, she said to me, "I don't know where you fit in. You're not the motherly type and you're not the young 20 and 30-year-old type. So I don't really know where you would fit in." And I said, "Well, I can dress differently, like older or younger, because I was just, I said, don't, exclude me just because I don't fit into any category, give me a chance to prove that maybe I could be a new category. It doesn't always have to be the older person, Twyla or whatever with gray hair. I mean, there can be, and like Sandra, she was not motherly, like old gray hair kind of. So anyway, they did. I pleaded my case to be given a chance to say that I could represent a whole other group of women that might be interested in the show because someone more like them, like the 30 to 45-year-olds who maybe wouldn't be interested in because they don't have players that they could relate to me. And my pitch worked because I made it to the finals and then got called.
That's amazing. That's a great story. Tom from Seattle, Washington wants to know, is there any way to prepare for Survivor?
You can read a lot about the tropics and what's edible and what's not edible, so you can really be ahead on, like, be of value to your tribe when you're trying to know what to eat and what not to eat, because they won't always tell you on Survivor. Like when we got really hungry and wanted to eat the rats, they said no, because not because the rats were poisonous, but because they could have eaten something poisonous. And someone wanted to eat a white snake, and they said, no, you can't eat white snakes. You can eat any other kind of snake. So, it would have been great if I could have said, well, I know, Ian, we can't eat that snake. I read da-da-da. So I would have, it helps to have a little knowledge.
Sure.
I mean, climbing is always key, and diving is key, and being able to, stand on it for a long time. But you can't really practice that. You just have to, really just tough it out and have really good, pick the right shoes. You have to have you don't think it's that important, but it is, because you only get one pair, and they have to be good for, land and sand. And so I got the kind that have the holes in it, so that I could wear them, and everything. And that worked out really well. But I think you could read a lot, and you could, improve your swimming a little bit. And, I did pogo sticks and walking on, trying to do balance on skinny pathways and stuff like that. But you never know what it could be. So I don't think there's really any one way to prepare.
Quick programming note: if you guys want to get your questions submitted, head to our website at whatwouldYouAsk.com, and all the details there to get your stuff. You can submit a Survivor favorite if you want. You could submit a show, a lot of things there. And you can find us on all social media channels on What Would You Ask, everywhere, Twitter, Instagram, all the places my kids know that I don't. So you find us, just Google us, you'll find us out there. So let's go to Palau, and let's talk a little bit about that. We talked a little bit about the Tom incident, where he decided that, first of all, I thought the cave was pretty cool myself. I don't know why we have to, I don't know if they thought the new camp was going to be, a turn down service or something, but I thought the cave was pretty good. You get very upset. And I think it's interesting that you did not look. Tom comes with a reputation. Some would say that the only thing wrong with Palau was everybody in the world knew Tom was going to win.
Mm-hmm,
right?
right.
Some people think that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk about that in a second. You don't waste, and this is the New Yorker coming out of her, folks, because that's where I'm from too. So I'm telling you, this is what happened. She turns to him when he makes the decision, we're going with a new camp. And she's like, hold on a second. Tell us a little bit about your thought with that. This is, again, I don't want to make it, he's not the second coming, but this is a guy that's one of the top Survivor contestants over the years, and you're jumping ugly with him right away without missing a beat. Tell us about that.
Well, first of all, I'm from New York. And second of all, I'm a civil rights lawyer. And I am a feminist, meaning only that I want equality. So I practice law with my employees by consensus. I don't just make decisions just because I'm the boss. I like to know before we hire a law clerk or an administrative assistant, let everybody make a decision. We're not in an autocracy where I couldn't believe that he decided the fate of where it would be. No, and it ended up we had no shelter. We didn't have a cave. We didn't have any covering.
Rats everywhere.
Rats everywhere. Much thicker brush to cut through,
mm-hmm.
which as you're getting weaker and weaker, you have less and less energy to cut through.
That's a good point.
With your machete. So I was shocked and didn't really think about it. But it happened a few times where Tom made a decision and everyone just sort of seemed to kowtow and be afraid, because, well, he had a little bit of a temper, and, at the end when he bossed Katie around and the beach. And so I think everyone was a little afraid of him, but I wasn't. I'm a civil rights lawyer. I can stand up for myself, and I stand up for other people. And I do this day in and day out, year in and year out. So I was certainly going to do it for myself. And I wanted him to know, like, from now on, no. And so the next time when we had to pick someone to go eat the balut, we did that by consensus. So after that, we did make decisions as a tribe by consensus, who we were going to vote out and how it was going to go down. And so I felt I didn't do it strategically. I did it only not to say, oh, I can beat this guy and I'm really strong. It was just to say, we are a tribe. We need to decide things as a group. And it worked. It just happened to be that even though no one said, yeah, Caryn's right, after that, when there came to be a decision, we discussed it.
Mackenzie from Summit, New Jersey asks, were you frustrated with Katie? She always seemed to have a comment, and I know you ended up having an outburst. Tell us a little bit about what happened there.
No matter what I would do, if I would throw a stick in the fire, she'd say, and this, I'm not exaggerating, she'd say, we have enough sticks in the fire. If I'd go collect wood because we were running low, she'd say, we have enough wood. You should stay and guard the fire. I've been guarding it for an hour, to make sure it doesn't go out. Or no, it doesn't matter what I said or what I did or what I didn't do. And so I finally said, what is up your butt? What is it? What is it? And she said, you look and remind me of my mother. And I do not get along with my mother.
Did she say that on the air? I don't remember that.
No, not on the air.
Oh, okay.
I asked her privately
okay.
what it was. I mean, I yelled at her on the air.
Yeah, I saw that.
It was, you don't know what's going to be on the air, but they're always around. The camera's 24/7, so you never know what's going to be.
That's right, yeah. But
I just said, you have to lay off me. You have to get off my back. I mean, you cannot keep going like this. And, I did not think highly of her, or, I didn't think she, what is that phrase, pot calling the kettle black. Here I am working my butt off as part of my strategy, and she's telling jokes because that was her strategy. Mm-hmm. And that didn't help. That didn't help us get food. It didn't help us keep the fire going. It didn't help us in any way, shape, or form. So she thought entertaining the boys, Ian and Tom and Jen and sometimes Greg, was getting her far, and it did. And she didn't care how she treated me or Willard or Kobe. That didn't matter. She was nice to her alliance, and she was not nice. She just knew that that's how she was going to get far, was by being funny and all buddy with her little group. And I couldn't have it anymore. And finally, after all these years, when we had our Survivor Union a couple of months ago, my daughter said, Mom, make up with Katie. So when we were on the reunion, I said, Katie, my daughters want us to make up. And Katie said, why? Do they think we're going to fight? I said, no, Katie, they watched the show.
Yeah, exactly. So you made up.
We made up.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Tom from Akron, Ohio asks, was one of the better moves you made on the show joining the blind side of Greg?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it was either going to be me or Greg because the 4 was tight. So as much as I loved Greg, I really, you do things that you have to do to get 3 days further in the game. And it was me or him that night. I just knew it. So I had to do what I had to do. And everybody knew he would outlast. He would go far, because he was great around camp. He was very, very nice. He didn't boss anyone around. He was helpful. He was very kind. And Tom and Ian knew he was a threat. And so I did jump on the bandwagon for that one. Marcus. And by the way, hi to Akron. We're only 30 minutes away from each other.
Oh, there you go. Marcus from Detroit, Michigan says, Tom was the favorite going in. Everybody knew that, and he still won. Why?
You're not going to believe this. When I had a chance to flip, okay, the one time I said if he didn't win and if we don't vote him out tonight, he's going to win. I said, Katie, you're not going to make it. You're not going to win if you stick with Tom. You're just not. You didn't do anything. Everyone wants to take you to the end because they know they can beat you. No offense, Katie, but this is your one chance to make a move. And I think she hated me. She did not. I honestly believe she would rather me not get the money than her have a chance to get the money herself. That's what I honestly believe. Because it was just at that time, me, Stephanie, her, and Jen, were the only women. And we could have blindsided. We could have gotten, Greg or Ian and gotten But when she said no, then I knew Jen wouldn't. And then it would be just Stephanie and I, and that was not going to happen.
Mary Beth.
Did I answer your question?
From
Detroit?
Sure you did. Yes,
Good.
you did. Mary Beth from San Diego, California says, "Hi, Caryn. You were my favorite and my family's favorite. I was only 16 at the time, but we were pulling for you." Her question is, did you regret not joining the all-female alliance? And if you did, who do you think would have went the farthest out of the four?
I think Stephanie would have gone the farthest. She was a shoo-in. Jen was good in challenges, but she really didn't make moves and didn't really mingle outside her little alliance. So I don't know if she would have. So I think I might have been second and Stephanie first and Jen third and Katie last. But the first part of the question is, why didn't I? I was always willing to. But then when they said, no, they're not going to, that's when I ran to Tom and said, okay, Tom, when I heard that they weren't going to, I wanted to be the first one to tell Tom.
Right. That's smart.
Because,
that's
right?
Yeah.
So, and then he got mad and he went to, yelled at Katie on the beach. We were even considering it. And yes, she was considering it. I was honest to him. I said, we were all talking. I want you to know we were talking about it. So I wanted to keep my word to him that if I heard anything about him, I'd let him know. And that if he heard anything about me, he'd let me know. I kept my word. And, at the end, he didn't keep his, but that's, he got where he got to go because of, didn't matter. Tom was going to find out. I did it to save my butt, so he heard from me first and not Katie. But I was always willing to join the Girl Alliance. Always. Everybody knew it was going to be Tom if things played out. If things kept going the way they were going, we had one shot, and we blew it.
Scott from Raleigh, North Carolina asks, Caryn, where did you go once you were eliminated?
Scott, they take you to this little shack. Well, first of all, when you get voted off, there's a boat waiting for you. And it is a very weird experience getting voted off. I can't really explain it. It doesn't really look so dramatic on TV, but imagine that there's lights around you all the time, 24/7, even when you're sleeping. Except when you go to do your private business, there's always a camera and a boom, right? Somebody following with the microphone, and at the beginning there were two, one in the front, camera in the back, thinned out as the tribe wound down. But imagine 24/7, you're on camera, or not on camera, but the lights are on you. Mm-hmm. And you're playing this game, and it's very real. It doesn't seem like a game at all. It's real life, and you're standing there, and all of a sudden, your torch is snuffed, and you take 2 steps beyond where they're filming, and you are off. Everything's over. All the planning you did, all the strategizing, it is such a letdown. I can't even imagine what it'd be like to be the first one. I mean, even though it was a letdown because you've gone so far and you can see the gold ring, I know it was hard every step of the way for everyone. I'm not saying mine was any harder, but when you get voted off, to answer your question, is there's a psychiatrist waiting for you, and they ask you, what are you feeling? First, they ask you, what do you eat? What do you want to eat? And everything's on the boat. Everything you can possibly want is on that boat. And then
a cheeseburger on the boat?
I had pizza and a Diet Coke. She's like, a Diet Coke? I said, have it. Just have it. So she asked me right away, what do you regret? And I just burst out crying.
Wow.
Kobe.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder why he hasn't been
so
back.
Anyway, I'm sorry. So then
Go ahead.
You don't know where they're taking you. You never do. I don't know if you know this. They when you're driving in a Jeep or anywhere or on a boat, everything's blacked out. I mean, so you don't know where they're taking you or how long you're going to be on anywhere. You get to, they want to totally disorient you. When you do get disoriented, and then I have no idea how long I was on the boat for. And then they landed on a beach, and it was a long shack. It looked like it just had rooms, and then there was one main area, and there was all these signs that said, welcome, you did a great job, from the other people who were there.
Yeah.
And it was just a shack, very simple shack with a common area, and any food you wanted, you ordered it, and they get it for you, anything. Because
was it beds and stuff?
Yes, beds and a shower.
Oh, nice.
I turned into a prune that night.
I bet.
But they were very nice. It was very, and then when in your room is a bag full of all of your favorite things. Because when you fill out your application,
that's so
they
cool.
ask you, what's your favorite perfume? What's your favorite video? What's your favorite book? What's your favorite color? What's your favorite? And here's a big, beautiful bag of all your favorite things. And you forgot.
Yeah.
It's just one of a million things you had to fill out to be on the show. And then there was your bag.
That's cool.
It was sweet. It was sweet.
So did you get to hang out and have a glass of wine with the other people eventually, or is that not allowed?
Oh, no.
Oh, you can? Oh, okay.
Well, it was a lot of alcohol flowing. mucho alcohol flowing. I will not reveal any secrets here, but let's just say a fun time was had by all.
That's awesome. That's great. Let me, one other question comes up a lot, and I don't usually ask this. I think I've asked it only once out of 30 plus people, but people always want to know and they don't care about the crew. I don't mean this disrespectfully to the crew, but they want to know, where does Jeff stay? Is he in a hotel?
There's on another island. There's one 4-star. Back then there was one 4-star hotel in Palau, and that's where they kept the family members who came.
Oh, okay. Makes sense.
So that's where the crew and Jeff and sometimes the guy who created it, what's his name?
Mark Burnett.
Yeah, he was there sometimes. So that's where they stay, in the one nice hotel on another island. And my husband told me it was fabulous.
I bet.
Great service. I'm like,
you're sitting in a tent.
Yes.
A crappy tent that Tom picked out, by the way.
Exactly.
What was the follow-up? I had a follow-up because, I know what the question was. How often, and again, we see Jeff there every single day, but is he there every single day? No. He's there when the days that you're filming and when you're,
No, he's not there when we're filming. He's there if there's an emergency, like when Willard faked his going into whatever, apoplexy because of water, because he wanted water. And he's there for the challenges. No, he's not there ever. And no one is. I mean, other than the people filming, the challenge people are not there. It's just the people who are filming you and doing the interviews and the boom people. And that's it. You don't see Jeff every 3 days usually. I mean, sometimes they throw it off because they don't want you to get into a habit of thinking it's every 3 days, but it was generally every 3 days. That's why 13 episodes, 39 days.
Shortest and longest tribal council, because we only see snippets, but what was your longest and shortest tribal council? That, by the way, is from Sean from Westbrook, Connecticut. Sean,
it's really hard to judge because there's no clock and there's no time. And
that's a good point. That's right. You don't know where to watch. That's a good point.
It could have been a half hour for all I know, and it seemed like an hour and a half.
Yeah, that's true.
But I can tell you that for some odd reason, after everyone's done voting, Jeff leaves, and we don't know where he goes, and I guess talk to whoever he talks to. That's what seems like an hour. Literally, you're like, okay, there's only 7 pieces of paper in that urn. How much of a discussion can you have? And I don't know if it's because they wanted us to talk while they were gone, or we really didn't talk. It wasn't like now with all the people yelling and getting up and talking. We were really respectful of the rules. And so we didn't talk, but sometimes you'd be sitting there in the pouring rain. Literally, it might have been 20 minutes, and it seemed like an hour and a half. So sorry, I can't answer your question.
No, that's all right. So let's talk about post-Survivor now. You come back. Everybody has to sign, not everybody but everybody in your family has to sign contracts that say we're mum's the word. You're not saying anything to anyone. Even when you get back, you can't say it to anybody until the thing starts airing, or at least they start introducing Survivor Palau, and here's the people, and all of a sudden they say, wait, is that Caryn on there? What instant celebrity all of a sudden in the town, or what? Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Well, what I did was, because I'm a lawyer and I'm used to keeping clients' secrets and confidences. I didn't tell my daughter. I didn't tell anyone. I said, I'm having a big party at a bar, that at one of these sports bars that has a ton of big screens. I invited the Plain Dealer, our newspaper. I invited the Sun Press, the local press, just everybody I knew, because people who've interviewed me for when I've won a case or a trial or settled something that's public. And so I invited them for fun. If they wanted to write about it, fine. And I invited all my 30 friends, and no one had any idea. I mean, no one. And my girls knew. They didn't know, how far I had gone, but they knew that Howard had gone to see me. So they knew I had gone far, because Dad had to get the nanny to stay for a few days. So they knew I had gone that far, but that's all they knew. But no one knew anything. I didn't tell any friends, nobody. So it was such a shock. And then, of course, all the newspapers the next day. And then, of course, once a week, I was on the head of the Metro section when they would give the status of Caryn,
Oh, that's cool.
where she was in the game. But I was the, what do you call it, the grandmaster of the parades around here, throwing out the candy, and always interviews. And I was on some big spread on one of the legal magazines, so I did get a lot. And then it was very cool being in airports and people would recognize you. And I would say for a year or two, and then it dies down. But I still get lots of beautiful letters from fans and requests for photos and signatures, and very beautiful things people send you. You cannot believe the time and effort that people take to make things, photo albums of things that they've gotten off the internet, or to make a clip of all your, funny moments, or gifts and cards. Somebody sent me a stamp collection of all the stamps that ever existed in Palau. And it's so touching. People are so generous. People always talk about how mean people are and they send hate mail. I didn't get any of that. I got all beautiful, thoughtful, kind, and generous communications and gifts from people. Beautiful.
That's
and
awesome.
It's heartwarming to see the
really
goodness
cool.
in people.
I interviewed Danny Boatwright, and I think it was Danny, or it was one of your it was Stephanie Kendrick. Each one of them said, because they were saying the same thing about the response that they got, and it was so, like you said, it was heartwarming and it was generous and all that, and then they said, because there are some people out there that are Survivor fanatics that actually follow to the island that you guys
Yes.
They'll try to be on site to where you are to find out who's in the hotel, because they were talking about, I guess the same question came up about people that are no longer on the show. Where do they go? But they still have to put them in the shack, probably, because they can't go put them in the nice hotel. Because if they see one of you, that's, and I said, well, they're going to be in, Nicaragua or wherever. And they're like, yeah, there's people that follow us around, which blew me away. I mean, it blew me away that that's the case.
So I don't know if every season they do this, but Palau, they paid Palau to shut the air and the waters. So If you saw a boat or a plane, we had to get down and face the ground.
Wow. Jeez. All right. 2 final questions for you, Caryn. If you, we are talking to Caryn Groedel from Survivor Palau. She finished in the select group of the final 5. And interestingly, I wanted to ask you, let me add a third question. And this one's from me, folks, if I can ask a question. You voted for Tom, which I thought was interesting. And it wasn't a vote, again, I'm guessing this, but it wasn't a vote against Katie by any means. It was your vote to say, you know what? He is the best player on the show right now. Fair?
He was the best player, yes. And I was very mad at Ian. I would have voted for Ian, but he turned against me at the end, and he lied. He said something about me that wasn't true, that I had told him something. I don't recall. It was when they came back from a challenge, and Ian had told Tom, and then when they were talking about this at tribal council, you said this, I went, oh my gosh, that's such a lie. I never said that. And either it got twisted in the communication, because Ian was a really nice guy too, and he was very kind to me, and always felt like I was not his mother, but he knew that I was like around his mother's age, so I think he was very tender towards like being a lot away from my 3 kids. Most people weren't, didn't have kids who were left, and I think he was very kind. So I thought either Tom is lying, but Ian's not speaking out, or Ian lied, or Ian misunderstood. So it definitely was against Katie, and it definitely was. I had to think all through. Okay, Ian was great all the way through, except at the end, and derailed my game. I felt, Katie, forget it. And it really came down between Tom and Ian, and then Tom caught that that shark, and he belittled Katie and was able to belittle her into voting for him when she could have voted him out. And that takes a certain kind of person, a certain kind of player, and that was his game. He was a tough guy. You knew it going in. He was in 9/11. He told you right off the bat he likes things the way he likes things. He calls them the way they are, and that worked for him. That worked for him. And I didn't know at the end, but when I had to ultimately weigh better game, even though Ian was nicer to me and nicer overall, I went with Tom because I thought he was the better player.
Any misconceptions about Survivor that you had that going there dispelled those? You went, oh, wow, this is, I don't know.
Everything is true that you hear, that you're not allowed to talk before the game. They will kick you off. You don't know who on the plane is in the game and who isn't. You might have seen them when you were in the final 50 at the hotel in Santa Monica, but you might not have. There were a couple of people I knew I saw, but then a bunch I didn't. And you're not allowed to talk to anyone, and you're not allowed to talk until Jeff says game. Everything. The only misconception is that you cannot know how tired you can be, that the deprivation of sleep. That is the only thing, but nothing is. People say, is that real? They don't give you food. No, they don't give you food.
Yeah, everybody says that.
You come back from a challenge and you see gum wrappers or candy wrappers because the camera crew's been staying there. You're like, can you be decent? And do we have to see candy wrappers? Please. We're hungry enough without reminders. So no, I'd have to say everything is harder than you actually think, and harder than it looks.
Yeah, I have so much respect. Early days, I would think I would love to try that. It would be so cool to do all those things and try to just the test, physically, and the test mentally and emotionally. It's got so many tests. I think it's the ultimate challenge out there. I mean, we're doing Amazing Race. I never watched Amazing Race. I knew nothing about it. It's similar, but it's still not Survivor. And I don't mean it's just a different game. It's just Survivor is just the test of all. It has got its own things, right? I just interviewed the winners of their season 11, and he went to 6 continents, 12 countries, and logged 38,000 miles. I mean, that's in 3 weeks. I mean, that's moving, right?
That's just endurance. That's just endurance.
Yeah, right.
It's not about a social game. It's not about challenge.
It's a heady game too, though. It's a heady. There's challenges are very much cerebral as well. But so anyway, we've come to the last question, and I've read your answer to this before, and it was a few years ago in an interview you did, and I'm wondering if it's changed. If asked, would you ever return to Survivor?
At this point in my life, I can. I said no because oh my gosh, the creature comforts, once you've been without them for 45 days and gray hair down to here and just, dirty teeth and then smelling. But, I'm at the point in my life where I could do anything. And my career is kind of, I did everything in my career I wanted to do. I could do it again. Would I? I don't know, but at least I would give it a thought, whereas before I would have said no.
That's awesome. And also a great way to end the show, because we're going to get, that's up to you guys now. Let's start getting something together for Caryn and get her back on the show. I love seeing the women that challenge themselves. And I'm not saying that Survivor only promotes the guys, because they certainly don't. They promote everybody. But, there's women out there that are unbelievable Cherie is one that we talked to Danny the other day, and Stephanie, and Denise is unbelievable.
Love her. Yeah.
We talked to Carolyn Rivera, another one, the runner-up in I don't even know where that was. Season 10. No, I don't remember. That's you. Season 20, maybe, I don't know, but she's another one. No one even knows the name, but she's unbelievable how well she, took care of a solid game across the board, right? And there's a lot of those people out there, and we'd like to see, as one Survivor fan, we'd like to see an array. I mean, look, everybody loves Boston Rob, and everybody loves Ethan, and everybody loves those guys, and we want to still see them too. But let's mix up the group a little bit, right?
I agree.
And bring back some of those people.
I agree. Yep.
Caryn,
one more thing I do want to say
Sure.
is that I think I met my goal of being the mom that wasn't typecast as a mom. And they have had more women like me since then. And I got a lot of thank you notes from women and young girls who said, thank you for letting me know that, someone like you who's like my mom's age could do this. And so I think that we do need more women in, it's always like mostly young women and a couple sprinkling of, over 40. But I think we need to take more into account because we have a different game,
I agree.
Right?
I agree.
So that's my push to have more women of all different ages and ethnic backgrounds and ways of thinking and doing things.
I'm for that, 100%.
Caryn,
thank you for your time.
Thank you. This is a great
awesome.
idea, and I really had fun.
Good. Hope to talk to you again soon. Thanks again. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.